Hi everyone, welcome to the third episode of the Laura Loves Liberty video blog. This week I'm here to talk to everyone about the debate that was on last Thursday, 12/15. The debate was hosted by Fox. My analysis of the debate was, so during this popularity contest, it was full of bias towards specific candidates. I knew going into it would be like that because Ron Paul's numbers he's been surging in the polls in both Iowa and New Hampshire, so that I knew that they would be out for blood this time. During the first half of the debate, I thought it was pretty fair. Ron Paul got in some great answers to a lot of the questions. The second half of the debate, on the other hand, was opposite. Michelle Bachmann went after Ron Paul for his stance on Iran, calling it a dangerous answer to the question. What's really dangerous to me is going into another country, starting another war based on conjecture and what ifs. What if they have a nuclear weapon in 10 years? I mean, do we go after other countries because they have nuclear weapons? No. So why would Iran be any different? Set aside their remarks on Israel and everything, why are we trying to start another war in a country that is completely bankrupt? So after that confrontation and everything, I mean, it wasn't the greatest thing to leave people with, but what was even more maddening was watching the post-debate interviews with Sean Hannity. First, he interviewed 5 of the 7 candidates immediately following the debate. With all the other candidates that he interviewed, other than Santorum and Huntsman were the ones that were not invited to it, he seemed like he had a pleasant tone about him when he was interviewing Newt Gingrich, Romney, Perry, and even Michelle Bachmann. He was joking with them, giving them time to grandstand on their opinions.
I want to give you an opportunity to respond to Michelle Bachmann in one more sense. How do you get, if you become the nominee, how will you convince Barack Obama for the Lincoln-Douglas-style debates? Did you feel this was a strong night for you as you're up there? Do you feel you gain confidence as it's going on? Did you feel that yourself? At this point, I'd known everything about you, and I will not ask you about Romney Care. The big news to come out of this debate tonight is Mitt Romney made a $10,000 bet with Rick Perry. And I'm thinking how many times I have done that on TV, which is quite often. Thought it was a bit superfluous, a little petty. At the beginning of this, the question came up whether or not you're a good debater ready to go up against Barack Obama. I thought the media made so much of that it was difficult, but you really seem to have found your footing in these debates. We just had Ron Paul, and I like the idea when he says cut $1 trillion. His foreign policy scares me, though.
But the total opposite was for Ron Paul. He immediately attacks him. The first question he asked him, I'm paraphrasing, mind you, was, so when you lose, are you going to run third party? Really? Who does that, you jerk? You're just going to ask him that? That's not very fair. And then he continued to berate him with questions along that same line, even after Dr. Paul answered the questions.
I noticed you never gave a full answer to, I think it was Megyn Kelly's question. Will you promise, if you don't win this nomination, and you're doing very well here in Iowa, that you will support the Republican nominee and not run third party?
Well, I'll give the same answer I've given about 39 times now. That I have no intention of doing that.
Why do you think it wouldn't be dangerous if they got that nuclear weapon? Did I hear you say tonight, and I wrote it down, and I wasn't sure of the context because I will admit my attention was diverted, that we killed millions of Iraqis? When I brought up the issue of your newsletters from the early 90s, and some really outrageous things that have been written in there, and you had gone on record saying you had no idea what was in them, that kind of surprised me. And for all your supporters, I asked every other candidate questions of controversy as well.
It just really angers me to see mainstream media treating a top-tier candidate like that. I mean, it's just disgusting. So even though the Republican debate and the post-debate interviews may have angered me and many other Ron Paul supporters, we did have a ray of hope that came through on Friday night in the form of The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. I am a pretty regular Jay Leno watcher. It's sad, but I am. This episode had a totally different tone than any of the episodes I've seen. First of all, the crowd was more enthusiastic than I've ever seen them. Jay Leno, the jokes were more slated towards Ron Paul supporters and everything, which was great because that's the audience he was speaking to.
Republican candidates all had their different positions on the Federal Reserve. Ron Paul, anti-Fed. Mitt Romney, of course, pro-Fed, and Newt Gingrich, overfed. Newt Gingrich, overfed.
What I can say about the interview that Jay Leno conducted with Dr. Ron Paul was he had a real interview. He didn't look down on him. He didn't look down on his opinions. He honestly asked the question. He gave Dr. Paul time for his responses, and it was awesome. It was the greatest episode of The Tonight Show I've ever seen.
Please welcome Dr. Ron Paul!
And then Joe Rogan comes out as the second guest, and he's wearing a Ron Paul t-shirt. I mean, I knew Joe Rogan was a Ron Paul supporter, but it's great to see it on TV, and it just probably irked everyone in the mainstream media. It was awesome. And then at the very end of the episode, I mean, even Joe Rogan brought Ron Paul up during his portion of the interview, saying how great he was and how he just loves everything that comes out of Dr. Paul's mouth, which I agree with. Even at the end of the Tonight Show, they had to bump their last guest because they spent so much time on Dr. Paul and the crowd was going so crazy that they couldn't keep things on schedule. So they had to bump the last guest. I mean, it was a very inspiring and uplifting interview to see. And I'm sure it killed all the other candidates and the mainstream media. My quote of the week for everyone is, if a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. Thomas Jefferson. Thank you everyone for watching my latest episode of the Laura Loves Liberty video blog. I hope you tune in next time.